Well, everybody, let's get started. Welcome to our first local planning committee meeting for the City of Rochester's Downtown Revitalization Initiative. I'm Chris Bauer with the Department of State, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our Secretary of State, Mr. Robert Arias, to welcome us as we begin this planning process for the DRI. Mr. Secretary.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this. I'd like to begin by acknowledging Mayor Evans, and I think we have Tammy on here for representing him. So thank you for being here. And it's a pleasure to be here at the beginning of the transformative journey. And of course, a special shout out and recognition for Lieutenant Governor Duffy, who is a co-chair of the LPC, who's taken on yet another duty on behalf of the state to help guide economic development across New York. Also want to thank and recognize my colleagues in government, Assemblymember Damon Meeks, Harry Bronson, and Senator Jeremy Cooney, who have been staunch advocates for this project proposal, DRI, and making sure that Rochester got recognized. So we're really excited for their work. And of course, to the governor, Governor Hochul, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as Secretary of State and doing something that I love in terms of helping to push community development through this DRI initiative. And I mentioned that because before I joined and was appointed as Secretary of State, I was a legislator representing East Harlem and Barrio. But before that, I served on my local community board in East Harlem, working on community development initiatives. So I know firsthand that the best things happen when you have community stakeholders involved, you build consensus and partnerships amongst the local community, because that's what makes lasting change. So I don't just talk about it, I live it, I believe it, and I've seen it happen not just in the city, but across the state. And in particular, upstate communities have experienced the whole roller coaster of development. Once the nexus of activity in the Finger Lakes, Rochester, was anchored by flour mills and then grew to become the world headquarters for Fortune 500 businesses. But we've seen the peaks and valleys, and the periods of economic growth are sometimes followed by decline. But thanks to your dedication and hard work, exciting things are already and have been happening in Rochester. Rock the Riverway is already well known across the state and transforming the waterfront. And there's more that's happening. The governor's $3 billion infrastructure package, the Inner Loop North project, will continue to work to transform a once sunken section of the expressway into a safe pedestrian and bike-friendly complete street. So you have laid down the groundwork and are now with DRI, we have a chance to build on the momentum and accelerate the revitalization. So I have every confidence that you'll be able to use the DRI to achieve your community's vision of creating the vibrant heart of your region where investment, arts, culture, and community thrive. So Bob is very familiar with this, but as the cornerstone of the state's economic development programs, the DRI works because it isn't about the state telling you, local community, what community development is and should look like in your neighborhood. It's the opposite. We try to build the groundwork for community-driven plans, bringing local stakeholders together to identify key projects and investment that will revitalize downtowns and transform communities. So this success of your community is critical, not just for Rochester, but for the overall benefit of the economy in New York State. And DRI is a collaborative program. It requires local, state level participation, as well as making sure that the community is involved. And we have a team here that's available to do that, beginning with the Department of State Revitalization Specialists. But we also bring our sister agencies to the table, HCR, ESD, and of course your consultant team, who are already here working to help organize our efforts. So again, it's not about us. It's not just about the state. It's about you, the LPC members in the community. You are the most important folks at this table. It's a critical role in the DRI planning and implementation process. And you're the leaders in your community that will tell us which projects have the most meaning and value for your vision. Now, that project and other projects will eventually become part of your strategic investment plan. So LPC members, leadership comes with duty and obligation and a responsibility to listen and hear what your community has to say. The consultants will tell you more about that obligation, but really that is our formula, our special sauce. What we think makes DRIs special and successful is bringing together those diverse voices and building consensus so that residents and stakeholders are brought into the process and have a seat at the table during the creation of your plans, your process, and all the way through to the end. So throughout this process, keep in mind that the projects you choose should reinforce and synergize one another, working with what you have collectively in Rochester so that you continue to build and attract future investments. So while each individual project is important, and each block is important, the $10 million award is focused on the end goal. How does that fit into the entire vision of what you want to see realized in the community? So thank you in advance for the numerous meetings, efforts, time, commitments, and that will be needed to make this plan a success. The most valuable and precious thing sometimes we have to offer is time, and in this effort it is absolutely true. But know that we will be spending that time with you. DOS is here to help, as our sister agencies, to really walk you through every sense of the word to make this a successful process, but one that really continues to build and change, not just Rochester, but we know the Finger Lakes region and of course the state collectively. So thank you all for your time and your effort, and I look forward to a great number of meetings ahead. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate that. And also like to take this time to introduce our Deputy Secretary of State, Keisha Santiago Martinez. Keisha, are you with us? She may have had to step away. If that's
yeah, I think she had to drop off.
No worries. We'll go to the team members and we'll circle back if she makes it.
Yes.
No problem. Well, then I'm going to turn it over to our co-chairs, Tammy.
So, hi.
Tammy,
I will let Bob speak first because he outranks me. But
No,
I just wanted to mention that there's
first.
two.
Well,
thank you. Thank you. I wanted to thank everyone. I just also wanted to mention that there are two additional members, Ebony Miller and Eugenio Marlin, who are waiting to be let in. Sarah Brent. But
Sure.
on behalf of Mayor Malik Evans, I just wanted to thank you all today. I have the unique pleasure of being both now a City of Rochester employee. I am Chief of Staff to the Mayor, and previously I worked with Chris and Keisha and Amy and others when I was at Empire State Development. So it'll be great to see this process play out from application through implementation. And thank you for all the folks who have agreed to be on the local planning committee. And I turn it over to Bob.
Tammy. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Secretary of State for the great words. What a great way to kick off. I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary and the Governor, for your generosity for supporting the DRI, which has been really transformational in many downtowns around the state. I want to welcome all the LPC members tonight. This is a great process, and I think we have a great team here that's going to do some wonderful work. And looking at what DRI has done in the past in other communities, even here in Rochester, it is truly transformational. And the Secretary mentioned Rock the Riverway, which is still alive and vibrant downtown. We're seeing change before our very eyes. Look at the picture on the screen. I took a bus downtown countless times with my mother as a child. And I remember being on that corner, being on that block. Things are changing and changing for the better. So I just want to thank you all for being a part of this process. Again, the Secretary of State mentioned something important. It's a ground up process. So it's listening to community members and stakeholders. And before I close, there's one of our LPC members I wanted to shout out. Heidi Zimmermeyer is retiring from the Rochester Downtown Development Corporation. She's on the LPC. I can't remember a time when Heidi was not in that position. I just want to publicly thank her for her tireless efforts for countless years in the downtown area. And I think this is kind of a capstone for all the work she has done to really be a part of this process here, because it's going to be a great process. So I appreciate that everybody taking time. And my position as a co-chair, I will tell you this, I will always defer to Mayor Evans has a choice what he wants in his city. I want to make sure we support his choice for what he thinks, you know, in terms of which project may work best. And I do think when we're done, we're going to be very, very happy with this entire process with DRI. So again, I thank the team, our consultant team, and the state team, and glad to be part of it.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. And thank you, Tammy, and everybody. And we're going to kind of really get right into the agenda. And what I'm going to do is turn it over to Steve, and he'll take us.
Chris, can someone elevate Dave Ashton? He's not in as a panelist.
Oh, but you're
Sorry.
right.
Thank you. Did not mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. And
Technology.
Yeah.
Technology, and I can start talking. The you know, and don't worry if you need to shrink to get an LPC member in here, we will do that. So by all means, shout out. We need to get somebody in. We've already hit the number one on the item. We're actually going to do very brief introductions for the LPC members in just a moment. Then we go into the code of conduct, conflict of interest. I will bring Chris back on to this effort to go through that. This is an important part of this. And then we take it back over and we'll give an overview of the DRI. We want to look very briefly at the Rochester study area. And then we go into this committee discussion, which are some of the kind of the first steps that we need to be confirming and speaking of. And then, there'll be a few other like the larger next steps. For community members who have joined us this evening, for this meeting and every single LPC meeting going forward, at the end of it, we will open it up for comments from the community. And so that is how we finish each meeting. So if you have some comments, et cetera, there will be an opportunity for you to be involved in this. Why don't we just jump the 2 slides and we get to the LPC committee list, and we'll go right into the introduction. I'm going to use this as sort of a call to make sure everyone is here. And anyone who may be missing, and I will start. And when I said, quick introduction, just who you are, and just a very brief, your affiliation. We've got it listed here, but just so we can hear from everyone. And I start with, it's going to be Stephanie for Veronica Dasher, correct?
That's correct. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Rankin. I'm the Program Manager of Government and Community Relations at RG&E, and I look forward to being part of this committee.
Thank you. Sean?
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Glad to be here. I don't know how I ended up on this committee, but somebody wrote me into it, but I'll do my dang best to make sure I represent the people and be there when voices need to be heard. Thank you all.
Excellent. Eugenio?
Yeah, this is Eugenio Martin. I'm with the Ibero-American Development Corporation.
Thank you very much. And please, if I get anyone's names wrong, by all means, correct me. Thank you very much. Heidi?
Hi, I'm Heidi Zimmermeyer, President of the Rochester Downtown Development Corporation. And we also run the Commissary Food Business Incubator, which is within a block this area. Thank you.
Thank you. And Clayton?
Hello, everyone. Clayton Jones, Senior Director of Local Government and Community Relations at the University of Rochester. Thank you.
Thank you. And comes after Clayton, Sarah Brent, if you can, there we go. Perfect timing. Anna. Are we missing Anna? All right, I will make sure to.
Sorry, I'm on mute. She is on maternity leave, so the county will be suggesting someone shortly. I don't know if they had someone in mind for tonight, so.
Okay, so 1, and there we go. So Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Galena Payne, Galena Development. We are a real estate developer and stakeholder in downtown.
Excellent. Rachel.
Good evening, Rachel Labor-Polvino with Visit Rochester.
Perfect. Ebony.
Good evening, I'm Ebony Miller-Wesley. I'm the Director of Rochester Institute of Technology Center for Urban Entrepreneurship.
And Lisa?
Sorry, Lisa had a death in her family.
Lisa was,
yes.
You are correct. Thank you, Tammy. I just Just had that one written down. Joseph.
Hi, everyone. Joe Stefko with ROC 2025, which is our Regional Economic Development Alliance.
Great. Ken?
Hi, I'm Ken Glazer, CEO of Buckingham Properties, and we are longtime stakeholder in downtown Rochester. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Jim?
I have not seen Jim.
Okay, so we got Jim. Okay, so 3. Considering short notice on this, we'll have much more timing for the remainders. We're doing okay. Nicole?
Hi, everyone. Nicole Malik, VP of Governmental Affairs from Rochester Regional Health, also a downtown resident.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for joining. And with after these introductions, I will speak to the roles of each of the different groups. So on the next slide that you'll see, in terms of what the LPC, overall is doing, and the Secretary gave some, big pieces to this already, but, we'll be developing the vision and goals early on. We need you to confirm those and that really sets the stage for the DRI. You're always working with us at each of these LPC meetings, which will be monthly, maybe more towards the end, to help, brainstorm the ideas. You really, providing the direction for this effort. You as part of the public engagement. I mean, it's our responsibility to bring it together. We need you and want you there, and it's just so important to have you participate. The big piece, and you'll hear about this several times in this presentation, prioritizing projects and really developing the project list, and within this critical, and within those the funding recommendations. I mean, that's these are some these are hard decisions, exciting decisions, but this is a real big piece to this. And then ultimately with the the draft DRI, and this will come in components throughout this effort. We welcome you. We really appreciate all the help you can give. Some of you are more interested on existing conditions, some in other areas of this. Any help you can give in really making the DRI as good as it can be is always an important piece to this. So when these documents are being developed, we'll be presenting them at the LPC committees, and we'll work with you to get the feedback on them. So, really the LPC has a large role, obviously, in this whole effort. We also, of course, have within this, on the next slide, the city team, and I'm not going to go through all of these lists, but this is an exciting group, and we've done a number of these, and this is one of the biggest city teams I've seen come to an LPC. Everyone has been very helpful in our coordination calls, so we appreciate it. Within the DRI, the city doesn't have specific responsibilities, except that you have responsibilities, and we work through them. Participation in these meetings, the public engagement, all the components, working with and developing projects, being project sponsors. All of that is a major part of what the city will be doing throughout this effort. And then there is, of course, the state team that we'll see that you've heard from Chris, Sarah already. We also have Home and Community Renewal, Patricia, Stephen, Matthew, and the state really helps the LPC through the planning process as questions arise, and they do. It's often that the state team that will be able to give the right answer, most effective answer. They help making sure that we're accomplishing critical tasks. I guarantee you, with the deadlines that we're often given in these, they make sure we stay on top of things, and we will work our hardest to make sure that we do. There are very specific requirements to this program, and we and they will make sure that we're meeting the state and local goals. And then essentially, as we work through this, and some projects may relate more closely to other state agencies, they can help facilitate those conversations and those relationships within this. And then, of course, it comes to the consultant team on our side. We are Stantec's Urban Places. We are focused within our group on the planning and urban design, the mobility piece, complete streets, the public realm, engineering, and ultimately developing a number of these, the graphics, renderings, the pieces that really begin to generate the excitement and really demonstrate the change that the DRI can unlock. And we know that's an important component to building a successful DRI. And we've got a team, in the waiting to help develop these. On the next slide, just to give you a sense of, what we've done, we're now looking at, our 7th DRI. From the round 1, we had 3, Oswego, Elmira, Oneonta. And it's small. This would have been bigger on a big screen. But, Oswego, just as an example, the rendering is, a pocket park. That was an exciting component of their DRI. And it was one of the first things that they actually implemented within it. And now it's just a way to activate the streets, connect to the riverfront. There's just, the DRI, I mean, what we find most exciting about it is it really tremendous, results in these implementation initiatives in a near-term fashion where you can see change happening. And, that is the most exciting piece, one of the most exciting pieces to this. And we've been witnessing it throughout. On the next slide, we need to highlight the team that we've put together, because we certainly can't do it all. And we have BJH Advisors for Development Economics, helping build the project profiles. Highland Planning, you'll hear from Nancy later on in this presentation with community engagement. RevB is a new partner, although we've been working with them in Massachusetts on post-downtown recoveries from the pandemic, really helping small businesses understand and create the strategies and going forward in post-pandemic to really strengthen downtowns. We know they've been hit hard from the pandemic. Trophy Point, cost estimating, so that we can make sure that the numbers are crunching, this is working, that we've got it accurate. And then WZA, we had a long-standing relationship with on economic assessment and also financial implementation, really the public-private partnerships for some of these developments that we will likely almost certainly be looking at, and really making sure we get the right balance of funding to ensure implementation success, but also to create the leverage necessary that we're looking for. And then Zimmer Voc Associates, to end, again, we've had a long-standing relationship, a housing market analysis. This, again, I often highlight is one example where, well, we'll end up with a list of projects in the DRI, the housing market analysis and other components. These are tools that the city can use broadly, working with developers, in their downtown. They are an effective tool going forward. So there's really multiple benefits coming out of the DRI. Next slide. And of course, as our piece responsibilities, we will handle all of these staff LPC meetings. We will master the components of co-hosting and getting this Zoom right. We do the public outreach component with your help. And then we ultimately research, we study the issues, we identify the projects. You'll see these lists. We go through these several different types of analysis, aligning with goals and other components. And we'll be doing that throughout as we go forward. And then ultimately, we're responsible for developing the DRI plan report. And we work constantly with you and with the state and city components to make sure that we are building the best one that we all can together. Next slide. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it over to, and Sarah Brent, I bet you can jump to make it a little bit easier for Chris, but you can start, Chris, maybe, and we're going to go first with the code of conduct, and which will be coming shortly.
Great, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so the code of conduct, all the LPC members will need to adhere to the code of conduct, which will be outlined in an email you received prior to the meeting, and there'll be a form that you'll have to sign acknowledging that you've read the code and you will adhere to it. So what I'm going to do over the next 5 or so slides is to go through the high points of what the code of conduct is, and just being what this type of this portion of the presentation is. I will be reading it word for word, so bear with me, and I'll kind of encapsulate it at the end and to wrap it up. So the DRI Code of Conduct, members of the DRI Local Planning Committee must always serve and act in the public interest, regardless of their affiliation with or relationship to any business, municipality, not-for-profit, agency, program, entity, or interest group. Code of Conduct addresses potential conflicts of interest between local planning committee members and their interests that do not serve the public. All members must read and sign the Code of Conduct. Next slide, please. Members should use the Code of Conduct to guide service and actions while on the local planning committee. Remember, DAD, disclose conflicts of interest, act in the public interest, and disqualify if necessary. A member shall exercise his or her duties and responsibilities for the primary benefit of the public and in such a manner where any benefit to the member or family member or relative of the member is incidental only. For purposes of this code of conduct, a conflict of interest arises if such an exercise results in any benefit to the member or a family member or a relative of the member that is more than incidental. A conflict of interest may occur when the personal interest, financial or otherwise, of a member has the potential to interfere with or appear to interfere with the member's independent advice. Any potential conflict of interest must be disclosed at the earliest possible time, which should be prior to the meeting in which the matter will be discussed or as soon as the conflict is noted. Even an appearance of impropriety or an appearance of improper conduct should be avoided. If unsure of conflict, please request an opinion from the New York State Department of State Ethics Council. Recusal. So a member may not vote or attempt to influence a discussion or vote where a potential conflict exists. Members may provide factual information in a public forum about a project from which they have recused. Members must identify a potential conflict at the first meeting in which the member is giving rise to the conflict is discussed. A list of recusals together with the recusal form completed by each recused member will be maintained for each project for the duration of the DRI planning process. The recusal list will be updated at each meeting. The LPC co-chairs will remind members of their obligation to recuse at each meeting of the committee. Unwarranted privileges. No member should use or attempt to use his or her position as a member to secure unwarranted privileges or exemptions from him or herself or others. No member should disclose confidential information acquired by him or her in the course of his or her duties as a member or by reason of his or her position as a member, or use such information to further his or her personal interests. And of course, committee members agree to abide by all on-site, local, state, and federal protocols in place to reduce the risk of the spread of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of all participants engaged in the DRI planning process. For questions, New York State's Ethics Council, here's our contact information, email or phone. Contact them at any time. And really, folks, when you're thinking about what might constitute a conflict, really trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, you can talk to me. If you don't want to talk to me directly, you can always talk to the Ethics Council. I'd hate to have a potential project be jeopardized by something like a conflict of interest that comes before the committee. So please disclose, fill out your forms, and get those back to us as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And on to the next slide. So now we're just going to give a quick overview of the DRI. Believe me, you will learn all about this in the upcoming days. But on to the next slide. This is a program, it's been ongoing, actually, and exciting news, it doubled to 200 million this year, which is, almost doubling the opportunities. In some places you could nominate a 20 million versus the $10 million opportunities. But really expanding what has been a successful program, and it makes a whole lot of sense from our perspective. And it's just to help the communities develop these strategic investment plans to identify competitive projects, that can be funded in part. It's all about the leverage, as you begin to see on the next slide. How do we really make this, build on a successful application? And I should pause here and say congratulations to the city for securing this opportunity because it is competitive. Public participation is critical. And, it's why we have a local partner, but we need to make sure that we are transparent and with the community from the beginning, and they see their imprints on this effort throughout this process. And that will help build the support for these projects. I'm about to go into the types of projects that, are good ones and ones that likely would not be a candidate. But focus on capital projects, public infrastructure, private development. That's an easiest way to look at it. There's other areas though, revolving loan funds, potentially grants, facade grants, other components have been successful strategies in other DRIs. And how we can leverage other additional, and this is important, public and private funds. So if there's other public funds that are already into an initiative, this is an opportunity to get more, and it builds on it. I mean, the goal is to see implementation success in the near term. Shovels in the ground within 2 years is a simple way of thinking about a real strong project. And then obviously as part of this, we need to develop the metrics that demonstrate the implementation likelihood of success, and that becomes part of our overall plan. Next. So what goes into a strategic investment plan? There is going to be a clear vision, a community-based vision that we will develop with the community. We will work with them to identify priorities. Those priorities become goals and specific strategies that can support and make the vision come a reality. And then of course, it's the action plan. It's the very clear steps, a timeline when each of these components can happen for all of the projects, initiatives, and then oftentimes some other actions that may be included in a DRI. And we'll learn about this, potential projects that may not be ready in the near term, but are important for a community. What is the timeline for those? Those all become included within this. And ultimately though, an investment plan that has catalytic projects that are going to transform this area. So very simple. Next slide. As I mentioned, I wanted to focus about this. This is an important slide. And as we're beginning to think about this, the types of projects that DRI is looking to support are public improvements, streetscape improvements, bike lanes, other components within the public realm. The rehabilitation or new development, strategic infill within an area. These are expensive projects, particularly on the rehabilitation side. And this is an opportunity, where you have historic buildings that, cost more to do. This is a way to make that happen. And we've seen that so many times, projects can be cost prohibitive. This is an opportunity to help make that a possibility. As I mentioned, the grant funds are important and can help a number of businesses and can be revolving and ongoing. So another way to leverage funds. And then ultimately branding and marketing, but this is actually the physical, actually creating, brand signage, etc. So that is something to focus on. Again, it's the physical, it's the infrastructure. Ineligible project types, planning activities, operation and maintenance. So you may have a great community organization that wants to continue these types of programs. That can't be funded, but maybe there's, and one we've seen, is their building in need of some facade improvements or other ways to make that happen. Pre-award costs, that's a property acquisition, et cetera. Nope, those are not part of it. Training, continuing expenses in that realm, similar to operation and maintenance will not be considered. And then expenses related to existing programs that are already in place. So, if you think about it, just as we said before, public realm, public improvements and private development and some of these, the loan and grant funds and the branding are where we want to focus as we go forward. Next slide. And again, project requirements, and this, I'm not again going to go into all the details here, but wanted to include this for folks who are can pull this down and learn more, and other community members who are going into this. But there have been some changes this year. The project size and scale, the DRI awards, no more, none less than 100,000. So that's a change. We want to make sure they're significant, and the size of these projects, and affordable component is a piece to this in terms of the housing. We got to go and get a leverage here. So we're not going to go over 40% of privately, on a privately sponsored project. So in other words, 40%, no more than 40% support from a grant. That's an important piece to look at. And oftentimes, and as I mentioned with Sarah Woodworth on our team, we may be able to identify less so that we can do more projects, leverage more opportunity. And, we really are just looking for the leverage piece. Timing, as I said, let's think about it this way: breaking ground within 2 years, And then this is a new part that I'll get into just because even we are learning about it, but the decarbonization new to this year, you know, new or substantial rehabilitation, you're going to be required to meet the stretch energy code. So we will be able to go up higher in a potential funding for those efforts, you know, up to 50%. And that is incredibly significant and a new piece to this. And, you know, and again, you know, positive for the environment. So an important note. Next slide. And, you know, what happens, you know, within this whole effort, you know, the LPC, will confirm a slate of projects. I may be repeating myself on a future slide, but, you know, there's call it a $9.7 million is available in funding grants. You know, what we are charged to do is to develop a list that you will then vote on and support to the tune of approximately $15 million in potential DRI project awards. Simplest way to describe that is we all know that sometimes for whatever reason, a project that looked completely solid that could be implemented within the 2 years or started within the 2 years just simply falls apart. By having in excess of projects that are strong projects, it allows the state to then, you know, have another, you know, opportunities to select. So we create the work, you LPC vote on the projects, goes to the state, and then the state makes selections after the planning part of this is done. And they are going to make decisions based on the alignment with the state and local goals, how ready the project really is. So we need strong project profiles that demonstrate project readiness. The catalytic effect, what will this one project do to the surrounding buildings, the opportunities? How big of a catalytic component is that? And that is something that we will include within our vetting process. And the other co-benefits, what else can benefit from this effort? And ultimately the cost effectiveness, the leverage of what we are looking at. Those are, you know, how the state will begin to look at these items, and then they will begin selecting them. Again, we'll get into this throughout this process. So I know I'm giving you a lot tonight, but you'll learn all about this. Next slide. Timeline. I've said this on many before. You know, this now 7 months. So we've gotten almost an extra month, but we're already into February. This is a short planning effort for an incredibly important planning, exercise. And this will create, you know, some stress throughout it, particularly with community members, you know, project sponsors who need to get all of their ducks in a row to make sure they've got strong project profiles. We're all going to be working fast and furious within this, but it is going to be critical to stay on target in this effort because, you know, we really do have these hard deadlines to get this done in July, and we need to make sure that we've got the strongest DRI plan possible. So, you know, again, just looking at this, well, each step of the way, you'll be a part of it. But I just caution everyone, buckle your seatbelts because this is a, you know, this is a ride. Next slide.
So, Steve, I just wanted to
go ahead, Tammy.
I just wanted to interrupt for a second and let you know that Mayor Evans just joined.
Oh, Mayor, would the mayor like to do a quick introduction? I mean, that's worth pausing without a doubt.
Well, thank you, Steve, for the pause. I'm sorry for joining late. I was putting out fires, although I'm not a fireman. You learn that you become one when you're mayor. So that's what I was just doing. It's a very, very important conversation for us, obviously. We're excited about the DRI. We're excited about all the participants, the team that are working towards this. This can help continue to enhance, you know, the transformative nature that we are trying to create here in the city of Rochester. So I'm so grateful for the state, the governor, for confidence that she has invested and shown through action, through dollars that she's put forth through Rochester for this DRI project, and for everyone on this call and the work that you will do in order to make this come to fruition. So thank you for allowing me to just interject there, Steve, and I'll let you get back to it because it looks like you were getting into some heavy stuff with one of my most famous, one of the things I like hearing most about, which is the timeline. So I'll let you get back to that, and I'll just say thank you all for being on, and we're very excited about what's to come next as it relates to DRI. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Evans, for joining. That shows great support. So All right, Sarah Brent, if my older eyes are not so great, so we will need to get back into something we can all see. So again, so I think we can go on to the next slide, but ultimately we've got a plan due at the end of July. That is going to come very fast. And at this moment, I get to take another pause and introduce Nancy, who is, well, I'll let you give yourself an introduction, but when we're doing public engagement and good public engagement, we need local partners. Nancy? And you may be on mute.
Sorry, I'm Nancy Reka from Highland Planning. I'm the Director of Engagement for Highland Planning. We're based in Rochester. And we've already had one question in the chat about public engagement. So thanks for that question. Basically, with our public engagement, as you see here, we're going to be building on previous community outreach that's been done to the extent that lists are available, that we can already get the word out to people who've been involved in planning before. We want to do that. We're going to be seeking input from people on the LPC, but also we want input from people downtown, in the city, all around, who are interested in what's happening downtown. And I believe you'll see on the next slide some of the key tactics that we're going to be undertaking. So we're going to be having 3 public workshops, the first of which is going to be happening, we're currently in the planning phase for it, for March 2nd at 5 p.m. at the MCC downtown campus. There, you see it on the screen. And we'll also be offering that virtually by Zoom, so stay tuned for more information on that. We'll also be doing some outreach to individuals in the community just to kind of get a sense of what they'd like to get from the engagement and what success would look like to them for public engagement. We'll have a website, and also there will be an LPC meeting every month, and those are all open to the public. And as you saw on that timeline slide, those will be going monthly through June or possibly July as we finish out the process.
All right, thank you. Okay, so then I'll do a fast overview of the study area because this is going to be as part of the discussion item. But next slide, as you can see, the area we've got, call it loosely on the west, the river. We've got Main Street on the south, Franklin on the east, and it is Andrews up on the, I had a little cheat here, but Andrews on the north. So, a relatively tight study area, again, from the application, the city really has a core focus. This is an important area, an area in need of revitalization, and has all of the components, that one might be looking for within a DRI. And so, again, I'm pausing. I'm not getting into too much because it's going to be on the slide in just a moment, but go to the next. And, you don't just, come up with a location out of the blue. The planning efforts, from the comprehensive plan to the Center City Master Plan, Rock the River, the inner loop. I mean, so many big pieces have happened for you in Rochester, and for those outside of Rochester who keep an eye on it. I formerly was the planner for the city of Syracuse and was often jealous of what Rochester was doing. There has been so much success. I think we all also recognize within the study area, there are some real needs and challenged properties that, this could really make a difference. But, all of these components, as we had mentioned earlier, will all get put in and summarized into the upfront part of the DRI. That's called the downtown profile. And we will pull the common core elements from these, particularly within the goals, the visions for each of these. And those also kind of help build the vision and set of goals for this effort. So again, not trying to duplicate, trying to build from and develop the implementation strategies that support the previous planning efforts. Next slide. So, from the application, these are important. And again, let me just take a quick pause before I read through these. The city worked very hard, had public engagement, the whole component in developing their project application. These are where we're starting. These are the really strong ideas, and we're going to work to build on these. But the northwest corner of Main and Clinton, there's just a number of, issues there, but real public realm improvements were what the city has focused on. Streetscape and public right-of-way improvements for Division Street, more streetscape improvements for Mortimer Street, pedestrian access connections, public space improvements on Main Street Commons, and then looking again, building renovations to privately owned structures. So that's where we really need to build these, public-private partnerships. And a renovation grant fund, as I mentioned, which I think in many ways could be a very strong candidate for a project here. They've been included in almost all of the ones that we've done, at least in the past. So, that makes a lot of sense. And look at potentially at the convention center expansion and renovation. So, here, we've got a 68.9 million total development cost project. Some parts of me say that that number might go higher as we begin to look at some more opportunities, but a very strong place to start from, which is exciting. Next slide. Okay, so now we actually open up to a discussion. So I get to talk less, but the items that we want to get in through is the boundary confirmation, a public call for projects, just a discussion on the vision statement and the LPC meeting schedule. And then of course, it'll be, any additional questions from the LPC before we open it up to the public for comment. So just quickly, the boundary confirmation, as I just went through, that's on the next slide. Again, a little detail I didn't mention, the original boundary from the application, as you've gone through it, you will notice that it was smaller. It was a recommendation, to, again, as we're looking for potential, additional projects to make sure we really have a strong slate to ensure that we fully spend the 9.7 million and leverage it. We're looking at this, orange boundary, a slightly larger area. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about this study area that we want to take into consideration at this point? And no questions or comments are fine. Be quicker on the confirmation process. Okay, going once, going twice. All right, it looks like we have a confirmed DRI boundary. This is important before we go to the next slide, because as we look at this effort, the line is drawn through the middle of the road. So don't go south of Main Street. And that holds fast in a DRI. So we all, seems to make sense from our perspective. We've had conversations with the state and with the city. And so I think we're good, but just keep that in mind. These are, we'll once this is confirmed, we will stick to it. So good. Okay, on to the next. This is an important piece. So the next step, and we will launch this within the week or 1 to 2 weeks. We have developed a project form. It's like a mini application, if you will, that we will send out to the public and send on to potential new project sponsors that may be interested that have a project within the study area. The short thing what I want to emphasize is there's a number of things within this that we are going to be looking for. All of these, the project summary, the sponsors, the site detail, the proposed development, the cost estimates, the financing, the sources, they need to be demonstrated, lending, etc., jobs created and local impact. This is following the general outline of each of the project profiles. And, it's in no small part if a potential project sponsor submits the form back to us, and as we vet it as the consultant team, if they're not strong in these areas, again, it'll fall into the good idea piece. So our job and our commitment is to make every project that comes in, particularly every project that's aligning strongly with the goals and the vision of the community, we want to strengthen them. But if there's not there, if there's a disconnect between the property owner and the entity that may want to have a grocery store in that location, but there's no relationship, that's not a project. There may be a need for local fresh food, but that's just a strong, important idea and goal, but it's not a project. And if they can't go through this, we need to then be the ones to say to you, the LPC, that we, as consultants, we do not see this as a strong candidate for implementation to help you make the decisions. And they become tough decisions, particularly much loved projects. But so this is an important step. We will have a quick 30-day plus, we'll decide turnaround on this. There's never a firm hard deadline, meaning if there is a very strong project that comes in later in the game, but hits every single piece, it should be opened up and you as the LPC should know about it to make your decisions on it. But, as I've said before, it's a very tight timeline. If there is no room left to get it vetted, the window does close ultimately as we come into wrapping up this plan. So, but this is a big piece that you'll see next. And we ask you to share this as well with any, email listservs that you have so that we can, get the word out to as many people as possible. We don't want to hear someone say, I didn't know about this. So this is an important piece and I want to make sure we get it out. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, well, you're quiet. Believe me, you will not be quiet at future LPC meetings. Okay, go on to the next. This, and we can, we will take notes on this. If we were in person, we would have handed you a piece of paper to write on. But, I want to read the vision statement from the application because this is where we are starting. We are going to take this and we'll bring it to the first public meeting, and we will have an exercise for every member of the public to comment on this and to develop what they consider their personal vision that we build into a renewed vision for this effort. But the city's vision is for our downtown to be the vibrant heart of our region, a place that will continue to attract a diverse population of new residents while developers continue to report low vacancy rates, a place where investment will boom while making it the fastest growing area in the region. And finally, a place that will continue to attract more innovation, arts, culture, and entertainment so as to boost yearly visitors and overall economic development. The infusion of additional investments triggered by a DRI grant will put the finishing touches on our downtown revitalization and cement it as the centerpiece of the Finger Lakes region. Does anyone have any comments? Are there words that don't seem to be or seem missing that should be included within this? Yeah, and again, any information right now will be great. This is also something that you can take home and consider and contact us with any comments on it. But often where I see pieces to this is health might be one that I'm right here not possibly seeing. Resiliency. There's some components that we often come in. And again, we're not going to try to finish it tonight in any way. This goes to the community, but any thoughts on this as you're seeing it, or if you've already looked at it through the application?
I was going to point out that I was going to say Heidi's the best person to speak to this, just from her experience, but she's already has her hand up.
Oh.
Yeah, I would just throw out there that when we talk about developers continuing to report low vacancy rates, that's true for residential properties, but not for the 99 or so competitive office buildings. So COVID, it was weak part of the market to begin with, and post-COVID, it's even weaker. That's the flip side of that, is it may create opportunities for residential conversion, but the reporting low vacancy rates is only true in the residential market.
And then someone also, just to add on to that, someone said to add the word accessible somewhere, to make it accessible. Janet, thank you, Janet.
Yep. And it's important to keep in mind that the vision statement is when we start with a DRI like this, I mean, this sets the tone. I mean, so all of our projects that we end up recommending to the state have to fit in the vision somewhere because it all grows from here. And so this is an important first step. And so, like Steve said, we're not going to make the decision tonight. We might think of something tomorrow, and we'll hold it we'll make modifications and share it with you before our next meeting for sure. But again, this is an important first step for us to, start when we start evaluating projects that Steve gives to the LPC, to you, to have a good starting point.
I would add, I think the other thing that's missing, it comes in a backhanded way, but it would preclude any investments in any institutions that are tapped into the convention and visitor market directly, as opposed to innovation, arts, culture, and entertainment facilities of some kind that have the impact on making Rochester more attractive to visitors. It wouldn't, for example, the way this is written, it would seem to preclude anything related to hospitality directly.
Important comments, good. That's great. Anyone else? Well, then I will say, please think about this. And as you think, and as an idea comes up, send an email to me. It'll all go into the record, but it will help. So, and I'm sure the idea will come up at a funny time. So to send an email whenever you've got it, without a doubt. All right, next slide. Okay, now I propose we're starting from today's date, and we have set essentially a monthly meeting, and through July 13th, as I mentioned before, once we get into June and July, that's when things will be really heated up, and we may likely need to add additional ones. We will make the decision at that point, but generally, the first question I have to the LPC is the time slot 5 to 7 a good time slot that works for this group? And I'll take objections. If it really doesn't work for folks, just shout it out. Okay, that is good. The next question is, obviously, as you can see, we set them up on Wednesdays going forward, and that some people may have standing conflicts on a Wednesday. We could do we could move these so there's a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Tuesday. Does anyone have an opinion on that, or see a potential conflict with ongoing or monthly Wednesdays at 5 p.m.?
Noting that we didn't want to conflict with city council or any other kind of standing meetings that we did know about, but that doesn't preclude other meetings that we did not know about.
Thank you, Tammy. Good point.
No worries.
It's starting to become easy. I don't want to, I should knock on wood. What we will do is, again, we will very quickly, if, please, confirm with your calendars. If anyone has a potential conflict, please let me know, because, your participation is such a critical part of this, and we really need to accommodate all of you. I will also reach out to the folks that are not on this, that couldn't make tonight, to confirm this one with them as well. Once we are okay with this, we will send out the meeting invites now so that you will have plenty of advance. We'll also send the agendas at a, probably, quite a few days ahead of time, to give you a sense if there's any materials requiring review, we get them to you, in advance so that you'll be able to do it. So, once we've got this schedule, you'll have more time to see what is going on. So it's just great to have it on. We will also, and I will send it out, now that we've got this meeting schedule likely in place, we will then follow it up with, the dates for the public meeting number 2 and public meeting number 3. And we will send those out to you as well to make sure that, generally there aren't any large conflicts. Again, particularly with the public meetings, we really encourage you to participate. It's not required, and, not all of you will be able to make, each of the public meetings. So, but, with that, that's a good start, that we've got a structure in place. And next slide. All right, going right on to next steps. So again, as I just mentioned, that we will likely be confirming our dates. The issue call for projects form that will go out within a week's time if we can get everything approved. I'll work with Chris to make sure that the form makes sense, and then I'll work with the city so that we can broadcast this as well. Once it is finalized, that will go in email to all of you. And again, as I mentioned, we want to push that as far and wide as we can. We already do have a community engagement plan, Chris, rest assured. You need to review it and approve it. Nancy's been working on that, so we will get that over to you within days to get that ball rolling. And then again, what we'll really be jumping into, and this is in tandem with obviously the public meeting, but we need to confirm the vision, establish the goals and strategies that support that. So that is our next big step. The downtown profile and assessment, as I've mentioned, we are already working on that. We need to, we have a commitment to get a draft to the Department of State by the end of this month. So you will be seeing a draft of that at the next LPC meeting. As I've mentioned to Chris and others, there'll be some components missing. The residential market analysis takes a little bit more time to get the full piece done. And some of the market analysis may not be fully in there within the draft, but you'll see where it goes in, and anything that they have initially will be in this draft version. And so that will be one of the first sort of deliverables that you see that becomes part of the final plan. So, and again, as I mentioned, we'll welcome, review and comment to that, to the ability that you are interested and can really help us. So those are the steps. And I think the next slide is going to either be the public comment, but before we open up to the public, Sarah, Brent, are there any final comments from the LPC or the state or city folks who are participating right now as panelists?
No, the only thing I would just add is that, I think that it's important that we do everything that we can in our power to stick to this timeline. This area that we've been talking about is really a key linchpin to the success of the rest of downtown. I just can't emphasize that enough. If you look at all the other corners, there's great development and things that have happened on those corners and in those areas. And if we don't, stay on the time frame to get the area that we're talking about here, which we're so happy to have these dollars for, it really will set us back. So, and I'm not saying that that's just not hyperbole. It's just the fact. So I think that will be the challenge. Obviously, we want to. I agree. Public engagement is so very important, and we'll do that. But I just want to say we're very committed, particularly from the city side. And I'm sure I'm speaking for all the city employees that are on this call, to make sure that we stick with this time frame and that we are not any impediments in any way holding up this movement on this. So we're really excited about this and committed to sticking to this time frame to make sure that we don't get behind the 8 ball and we can move this forward in an expeditious way. So thank you.
Steve, I just wanted to add on that community engagement piece that there's been a couple questions about how to get on the email list or how to find out about meetings. And I think that the city will be posting meeting information to Facebook. Is that correct?
We are discussing working with Highland Planning because I know that there was an outreach strategy. So I was going to connect you, or Steve was going to connect you with our communication shop and make sure we're all on the same page.
If you are an attendee and wondering about that, stay tuned. But Sarah, Brent, do we have the email addresses for people who are attending right now on the attendee list?
I believe so. Because I've been sharing, I haven't been able to check yet. But
just to be sure, if you want to make sure that you're on our email list, go ahead and you can message me, Nancy Reka, directly in the chat, your email address, and I will make sure that it is on the list.
Could someone share why the territory to be covered in this work was enlarged to the extent that it was? Is there someone can share the reasoning behind that? Would be very helpful.
Chris, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
A couple reasons. We wanted to make sure we were capturing more potential projects and understanding that there was a certain need in that block and a half that was in the application. To have a larger impact, I think, was more beneficial to what DRI typically speaks to. And so we worked with the city on what would be a reasonable expansion from that initial boundary. And because we didn't want to go too big, we didn't want to have it too small. And what we came up with seemed to make sense for this particular part of downtown. And also Steve mentioned it earlier, it's you never know when a project might not exactly go as planned and not be able to be awarded. And so you wanted to have at least an opportunity to have additional projects come forward to compete. Because a lot of these projects, you'll rarely hear us say a project's not eligible. I mean, there's certain categories that Steve alluded to in one of those slides, but generally we look at projects on a competitive level. And does it speak to your vision, goals, strategies well? Is it leveraging private dollars to make the project happen versus another project? And so we look at a lot of different things, and we want to make sure that the projects that come forward are as competitive as possible.
I'm looking at the questions, and again, I know some have been answered, but if not, let's add again. One that I think we may need a little bit more information, but the parameters we're using on determined affordable housing, that I need to probably get more information. That's a component that's new this year. We're often looking at different percentages, whether it be up to 80% of the area median income. And in some cases, it can go in different directions. What we know and what we've dealt with in a number of these in the past, there's different needs of affordable housing in different areas, and then there's different activities already underway within different cities on projects and stuff that's already happening. And so we will be looking into that. I know that's not the best answer, and Chris, I think that's something that we follow up with at a later point to get a stronger answer that we will bring to the next LPC meeting with that, because I know this is a new component to it. What I'll end with is affordability is an important component to this initiative, and it's been, from our experience, essentially a component in many of the DRIs. And so, it's clearly makes sense why it now has been a formalized piece to this year. So.
Yeah, this year it's new. This year we're having for multifamily rental unit developments, minimum of 8 units with a affordable component. And so we don't say X number has to happen. It's a competitive thing. So if we have multiple projects that come forward, it's going to be up to the LPC which project fits your vision and your strategy best. And which project addresses that the best. It's a competitive nature of the DRI. We want to make sure we get the most competitive projects out there, and the ones that come forward with a strong affordable component, they might score better. And so it'll be up to the project sponsor. We refer to these projects that come forward to the LPC coming from sponsors, because those are the entities that the state will have to contract with once a project is awarded officially from the state. And so those project sponsors have to come forward with a competitive project, sharpen their pencils, make sure they're hitting as many goals and strategies as we can. And so the affordable component is new. It was felt strongly from the state that we needed to include that in the guidance. And that is this year. So
Steve and Sarah Brent, Richard Rosen has his hand up.
I am allowing to talk.
Richard?
Sorry, it was muted. Main Street's the connector between the East End and the river. All this stuff happened to go Rockford River Way. Back in the 1970s, I worked for the Deputy Mayor, John Stanton, to try to revive dying retail on the north side of Main Street between Clinton and the river. We came up with the mill to replace the folded Edwards department store. That didn't work. Retail in this strip has always been extremely weak. And the only way you're going to get people to walk downtown or to take transit or bike between these two nodes, the river and the East End, is if he gets some excitement on the street on the north side of Main Street. So I want to champion Heidi Zimmermeyer's question. Why have you expanded this when the focus initially was always the north side of Main Street? How it's letting us down. It prevented it becoming this main link downtown that's needed.
Thank you, Richard. And again, I mean, there's comments. I think, again, as we discussed, the real need to be, as Chris mentioned, just to make sure we have projects, but I think everyone that I've talked to, we all agree north side of Main Street is critical. And let's make sure we've got real solid, strong projects that make this list. That's our commitment on our side.
Good.
Any other questions coming in or comments? This is really more comment period, but if we can answer it, we want to accommodate. So, but we really appreciate the comments.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. The one piece, I don't know if it was really answered. I did see it as I scanned through that, just the chat. Yeah. Well, two things, we're going to be, now that everything becomes official, gives us more time to get material out and information out to the community well in advance. Yeah, and we will make sure that we get out, as soon as the website and everything is going, we will make sure to bang out this PowerPoint, and we'll get that out as quickly as we possibly can, and we'll make an announcement when it's available on that. So that it will be out soon, and there'll be information on how you can access it. Like I said, we really hit the ground running on this one, and it's so we thank everyone for their patience and as we get this started, but now we are running, so we're good. All right. So I don't think I'm missing anything else. Anyone see anything else that should have been commented on? I don't think so. And all right. Well, with that, I'm going to say, thank you all for, taking on this responsibility. It really is an exciting moment for Rochester. We're thrilled to be a part of it. And I look forward to meeting all of you in person soon. But we're always, as I'll say, we are always available virtually. All of these events will be virtual if that's your preference. So without a doubt, you'll have that option, but I do look forward to meeting you. On that, I think I'll say good night and enjoy the rest of the week, everyone.